Argentina. Again, I'll talk about it later on. He lived out a full life down there. He died in his 90s. Now, I didn't know this until I had finished that very same lecture in Frankfurt, Germany. I had another lecture in Chicago, back-to-back with it. So as soon as I finished that lecture, I had to hop on a plane, fly to Chicago, and give my presentation there. And in my audience was a little lady who was so excited when I was giving information about Hitler and the Greys and so forth. So after the whole thing was over with, she came up to me and says, "Virgil, I must talk to you. I have very important information for you, which substantiates what you've already said." And I said, "Well, now I was booked solid in readings all that week." And I said, "Unless I have a cancellation, say in the evening around dinner time, I won't be able to talk to you until the whole thing is over. But if I have a cancellation, I indeed will call you and we can have dinner together, and then you can convey to me what it is you want me to know." Well, sure enough, I think about the fourth day of my readings, I had a cancellation, and I called her. And her background and origin was Argentinian. And she said to me, "I am the daughter of the former Secret Service head of all of Argentina." And her name is, how do you pronounce it? Rubio Monteiro. And she said when she was about, somewhere between 12 and 13, she and her father were sitting in an outdoor cafe in Argentina, Buenos Aires. And he said to her, he said, "See that man sitting over there?" And she said, "Yes." She said, "Well, he's a very famous man." And she said, "Well, who is he, Daddy?" "Well, his name was Hitler." "And you see the woman sitting next to him?" "Yes." "Well, that's his wife, Eva Braun." And so now, this is long after the war is over, you see. And this is back in I guess the 70s, really. Late 60s, early 70s. And it was at least that. So anyhow, the point is that Hitler did not die. He played his role as the last Lord of Darkness. He then, of course, was surreptitiously taken by submarine, and there's much more to the story than this, surreptitiously taken by submarine into Argentina, and there he lived out his life in full. And Eva Braun, the last I heard, she was in her 80s, and I heard just recently she has also died. He died in his 90s. So he fulfilled the prophecy of the Mayan calendar and the Mayan prophecy. Now there again, I use that illustratively to point out to you that there isn't anybody here that's not here for a specific reason or some type of design. There's only one exception to that, extraterrestrially, and that is because we are in the process of graduating from the third into the fourth and fifth, and these are the most trying testing times we will ever experience. They have turned loose upon us the lower astral. And all you have to do today is look around the world, and you can see this representatively in other countries. For instance, what's happening in Yugoslavia right now. Look what brother is doing to brother. I mean, it's sheer insanity. Look in, say, your own country right here, and look within your own city, Phoenix, Arizona, or any of the larger cities, and look at the things that happen that are amoral in nature. In other words, people indiscriminately killing children and adults and what have you, and there's no basic reason for it other than they just kill, you know. There's not even hate many times involved. It's an indiscriminate type of thing that takes place that, in a sense, is a mark of insanity. Yes, question?
I have a question. You mentioned the planets.
Mm-hmm.
How does astrology fit into that? Is like the planet we last came from? You know, I don't know how.
Well, what I say in terms of, in answer to your question, I say that astrology basically is playing with a half a deck. You know, because there are three other major planets that they're not considering, you see. And so we do not have a in-depth and true interpretation of who we really are.
So not all of us may come from the same planet.
Oh, no,
Before
no,
we enter
no.
here on the ship or however we decided.
Right.
And the vibration of the planet also determines.
Well, the vibration of the original planet, of course, is lost when you come in here. You may have memories of it and recall, particularly in your meditation, particularly sometimes in your periods of reflection. You may say to yourself, as I think most of the people have done at one time or another, I don't belong here. I don't feel like I belong here. I know I'm here to do something, but that's not really where I truly belong. I belong out there someplace. Even many times when we look at the heavens, we have an awareness, that we belong elsewhere, or we came from some other place. Now, the Indians are much more open to this than we are. For instance, if you go up here to the Hopis and talk to the Hopi Indians, and if you ask them, you're on the inner circle, and say, where do you truly come from? They might give you an answer like, we come from the inner earth, or we might do this or that. But if they feel that you're worthy of it, they will point to the Pleiades and say, we come from there, the seven sisters, you see. So they come from the Pleiades. If you go to the Dogons in Africa, the blue-black race, and you ask them where they come from, they will say, we come from there. Serious. And so every tribe, for instance, the Aborigines in Australia, are very advanced spiritual peoples. They're like our Indians. They're regarded as savages. They're regarded as, in many cases, barbarians and drunks and all this. They're not. As you will hear tomorrow when I talk about the Indians and the Aboriginal peoples, they're you might say, the arcane, they keep the arcane secrets in hiding. They are the spiritual leaders of the future, and they are the eldest of brothers. They have a greater understanding who we really are and where we come from than we do, you see. Yet we treat them, as I say, like barbarians. There's another very important distinction, which you will hear tomorrow when I lecture on the Indians. There's such a thing as the Indians in the making and the true Indians. And there is a diversity here, you see. And what you're seeing on the reservation, for the most part, are the Indians in the making. The drugs, the alcohol, the prostitution, the black magic, and all these things, these are Indians who have previously been white people or some other race who has abused the Indians, the conquistadors, the cavalrymen, and people like this. And they basically and inordinately mistreated the Indian. They've come back this time in their last lifetime to pay the karma for what they did to those people. And now they're in red bodies or Indian bodies. And of course, as one of my Indian friends said to me, they ain't doing so well, are they? But with another thing too, within every tribe that I've ever visited, whether it be here in the Americas or Mexico or Central America, wherever I go, I find that in the inner core there's a very pristine and pure group. And this is the group you must always reach if you are to work with them. You can't find them. They'll reach out and get you if they think you're worthy of it, and they'll bring you into the inner circle, and there's where you learn the truth about the things that I'm telling you right now, and you will hear tomorrow about the Indians. It's mind-boggling. Okay, so let me sum this introductory part up simply with this. All UFO experiences are spiritual in nature. Please bear that in mind, because it is. It's an experiencing of your individualistic and your collective consciousness. It's always been there, it always will be. I'd like to use an illustration biblically oriented to give you some idea of what I'm talking about. We all know of the great exodus that took place in Egypt with Moses and Aaron and, of course, all the people who followed them. We know that they spent 40 years in the desert, roaming, it seemed almost indiscriminately. But they also had some great experiences. Some of them, of course, are legendary, and they are recorded in the Bible or other books associated, such as the Lost Scrolls of the Dead Seas. These are chronicles that speak in truth rather than the hidden way that the Bible speaks. For instance, we know the epic story about Moses and the Red Sea. Do you think for a moment that he raised a staff and said, God, please part that sea for me? He didn't. There was UFO that was with them. All the time they were in that desert, hovering over them, supplying their needs. And when he was being pursued by the Pharaoh's men, he took what is known as a Virgil rod, V-R-I-L, Virgil, it's a power rod, which was directly in concert with the ship that was hovering above him. And he was told to point the Virgil rod at the sea, and they would do the rest. And indeed they did. History speaks for itself. He parted the seas, seemingly. He and his people, of course, made it across. And then, of course, as soon as they got across, the power was cut off, the seas closed in, and there went the Pharaoh's men. There's another story about him. He was out of water. And again, he took the burial rod, and he was told to go over to a certain rock and tap it 3 times, and he'd have water. Well, he did, and a gush in the fountain came up, and they had inordinate amounts of water, to suit all their needs, to carry them for the rest of their journey. We talk about, example, you ever hear of manna? Manna from heaven? Okay, what do you think that was? That was created during the time of Moses. That came from the ship. The Jews at that time were sick and tired of their rice and bean diet, and they were always complaining. And so Moses went to the mentor, the ship, whether it be Jehovah or whoever it was, I don't know. And he said, look, my people are restless. They need a change in diet and so forth. Can you do something for me? And they said to him, have your women at the break of dawn tomorrow, while the dew is still on the bushes, go out, and the food that you're looking for will be there. Well, that was the manna. The manna was festooned on the bushes. It hung down like, you can liken it to cotton candy. When you go to a carnival, you ever eat cotton candy? That was the consistency of it. And it had all the vitamins, and it had a luscious taste and everything else, and they were real happy. And the women would go out while the dew was still on the plants and so forth, and collect it in their baskets and take it back, and that was their regiment and diet, of course, for the day. All of these things, of course, are related extraterrestrially. If you think for a moment that the one known as Jonah went in the belly of a whale, a stinking whale, for 3 days, and then came out whole and live, that's a bunch of hooey. He went into the belly of an aquatic UFO, and received the instructions that he was supposed to have, and then came back and became a great prophet. So there's many, many references in the Bible, of course, to, again, the spiritual experiences of ufology. So I just want to throw that out today to get you to thinking about the spiritual aspects. The other thing is, many people, and I came down on several people years and years ago. I've been in this business so long. There was a woman who wrote a book that said simply that when the time comes that each and every one of us will be lifted off by the spacecraft from the planet and be spared the adversities of the coming Earth changes. And incidentally, I'm getting ready to cut a tape on the coming Earth changes, what you can expect physically and spiritually in the relative near future. We've only got 7 years between the year now and the year 2000 when all of this will have to be said and done. So I think it's wise that people know what they can expect, what their alternatives are, and what will take place in terms basically of the physical and the planet itself. Now tomorrow in my Indian presentation I will be talking about that in a degree, because I'll be talking about the Mayan prophecy, I'll be talking about the Hopi prophecy, and then I will be talking about the ultimate Indian prophecy. And it's in these sequences that we get some awareness and some idea of what's going to happen to us in the very near future. We're coming down the finish line right now. We're running for all we're worth. We're headed for the tape, to finish the race. But before we get there, we still got some very important things to do. And to many of us, they will be pleasant. To others, they're going to be horrendous. Depends upon where you are with your state of consciousness. If you're capable at this time of accommodating incoming spirit or the Christ consciousness, you will be spared the majority, if not all, of the adversities that others will experience. There is no safe place in the physical. If that's where your mind is, you're doomed to experience the very things that you are fearing. Fear is one of the greatest elements of control that the bad extraterrestrials have over us. As long as you fear, you give your power away.